Hey everybody, my name is Austin Hirschberger and this is my video for EDL 853 Module 4. Before we get to the interview questions, I wanted to give a little bit of a brief background on each person that I interviewed. The principal I interviewed, her name is Cindy Hebert. She's a principal at Linwood Elementary. This is her 15th year as principal at LES. And previous to her principalship, she spent 14 years as a third grade teacher in Lawrence. The SPED teacher I interviewed, her name is Janet Knapp. She is one of the SPED teachers at Glenwood Ridge Elementary. This is her 35th year in education, and she currently holds endorsements in elementary education K through 8, SPED K through 12, and education administration. And then the degrees she has are BA, MA, and EdS. And the para that I interviewed, her name is Jody Heller. She's also at Glenwood Ridge. This is her second year at GRE. And previous to her current position, she was a permanent sub and individual para for 1 year in South Dakota before they moved to Baser. And right now, she typically works with one student for most of the day. On the first question, I'm going to go down here to the bottom left. When I interviewed the para, she wasn't sure what child find procedures were. And to be honest, I wasn't exactly sure what they were either. So we had a little bit of a time to educate ourselves a little bit and Googled child find procedures so that we could both understand how it works a little bit better as far as schools being required to evaluate a student if they had any sort of suspicion on whether the student might qualify for an IEP. On the top right, I'm going to go up here because the SPED teacher had a little bit more information as far as those child find procedures. She explained that in our district, Tonganoxie and Baser Linwood share a co-op as far as special education services and collaborate with Tiny K and parents as teachers. Right now, they hold monthly screenings once a month at various locations, and it alternates between Tonganoxie and Baser Linwood. And then over here on the left, principal expanded on what the SPED teacher said a little bit by stating that the program we use is called Count Your Kid In. And as I stated before, we have events once a month at various locations. Question number 2, the most challenging part of their roles and why. My principal, she stated that finding qualified candidates as para-educators is one of the most challenging things. She said that we advertise positions on the district website and sites such as Indeed. However, getting applicants is sometimes challenging because of the low pay, and especially finding qualified candidates because of the low pay. And then another challenge that she stated is finding the time to make decisions as the IEP team. By law, the team must meet in order to make changes between the annual IEP year. However, the negotiated agreement only allows for so much time for teachers, which comes out to about 20 minutes at the end of each day. So finding time for each teacher to meet and make IEP decisions. Special education teacher, her primary challenging part was professional development. Typically at PD days, the focus is on general education, and SPED is usually more of an afterthought as far as PD. And then the para, she stated that there's just not enough time. You can only do so much here at school, and then students, usually SPED students, need a little bit more structure and more repetitions at school, and then they go home and often forget because those skills aren't being taught at home, so then they spend time the next day reteaching something that they've already learned. Question number 3, the most rewarding part of their job when dealing with special education students, parents, and teachers. Principal stated, as a principal, she gets to know the parents of the identified students better than she does with typically developing students. They spend more time during IEP meetings and such and see each other at least once a year, if not more than that. So it's a little bit more consistent with parent interaction. Another rewarding part of her job is also seeing the flexibility and creativity of the SPED teachers. Um, Especially because students can often present themselves differently each day as far as their behaviors. And then another reward for the principal is seeing the collaboration among the IEP team between her and the gen ed teacher, SPED teacher, psychologist, and everybody on the IEP team. One of the rewards that SPED teacher stated is seeing parents and students experience success and hope. She said when students and parents experience success, their previous perception of barriers begin to diminish, which is awesome. And then the paraprofessionals, she said general education teachers are often very appreciative of the paras, and then also just saying the development of the students and the growth. And she said you see growth each and every day, either behaviorally, socially, or emotionally, or academically. As far as advice on supervision of special education staff, principal had a lot to say as far as advice. Walk through she said walk through as often as possible and collect data. With the help of the psychologist, make certain that they are meeting deadlines for notice of meetings and sharing IEP information with the students' teachers. And then also making certain to write evaluations and all specialists. Writing evaluations on all specialists and paras, just as you would the general education teachers, and then also having good communication between the reg ed teachers, sped teachers, and paras. As far as a special education teacher, um, some of the advice she gave is time is the resource that is needed. SPED often needs more time, as I stated before. There's only so much time, especially when you take into factor the negotiated agreement for teachers. They need time to communicate with gen ed teachers, time to research, time for PD on curriculum, and time for PD on technology. And then some advice that the paraprofessional gave is just letting staff be as independent as possible, because eventually they're going to have to know how to do the things that you're showing them to do on their own without you stepping in. And then also just to love what you do. How each of these how each of them work effectively with parents of special needs children. Principal, she said, parents are the most valuable part of the IEP team, and we value their input greatly. At annual IEP meetings, she reminds parents that the IEP being looked at is just a draft and it can always be changed if changes are necessary. She also has the case manager make regular calls and emails to parents to develop trust and a warm relationship with parents. SPED teacher kind of said the same thing, regular communication. She also said that she sends a letter to the students at their homes at the beginning of every school year just to welcome or to introduce herself. And sometimes the students who have been in her program might maybe not forget who she is, but they've been away for, to students, 3 months seems like a really long time. So just reintroducing herself and helping them feel welcome when they come to school. And then she also stated that, and this is a really good point, that emails are no longer her primary source of communication. She gets way faster responses and way more responses by texting rather than emailing. And then the paraprofessional just say they don't have any direct interaction with parents. They do have a log that they can fill out each day if there's something that they want to communicate to the parents, and then the SPED teacher usually is the one that does the communication from what's written on the log. How they work with regular ed teachers of students with special needs. Principal said she helps educate them of special education laws and what must be met for each child. She encourages participation as part of the IEP team when making decisions and reinforces the student's service time to the gen ed teacher. Many of the teachers would like for the student to remain in their class during the pull-out time, but she insists that when it's pull-out time and during their service time, they need to leave the classroom, even if the gen ed teacher would like for them to stay in the classroom. The SPED teacher communicated that frequent communication with gen ed teachers, communication before and after school, and also during their plan times. She visits to ensure teachers understand accommodations and behavior supports, and also has a good time to, or it's also a good time to discuss curriculum modifications if needed. And then the paraprofessional stated that she lets the teacher lead, and then she kind of does as follows. And she also stated that sometimes when her student is working independently, she'll help out with some of the general education students, and oftentimes the homeroom teacher is fine with that. Advice for a first-year administrator. Principal had some really good things to say. She said, take as many special education law PD courses as I can. She said the KASB, Kansas Association of School Boards, has great PD sessions available on the subject. And then she also stated that TASN, I had to look up what that was, Technical Assistance System Network, not allowing them to come over and take over the discipline framework of the school. She said sometimes special education specialists will want to come into the district and make a blanket policy without experiencing a principalship prior. SPED teacher, some of the advice she had for a first year administrator is in general, protecting teachers' instruction time will be the biggest challenge. Attending as many meetings and not designating LEAs will foster healthier relationships with families. And every IEP meeting has to have some sort of administrator there. So if the principal can be there as often as possible, that looks really good, and you're able to build better relationships with parents. And then my paraprofessional, some of the advice she gave is just trusting that the SPED teachers and the paras have the students' priorities first. The role of the special education teacher and the building principal. Principal said interaction is key. You have to communicate and interact with them more often than you would with homeroom teachers. She also stated giving encouragement. They often need more encouragement and recognition because their job is more emotionally challenging as they deal with undesirable behaviors. Students also go long periods of time in special education with little to no academic growth. Special education teachers stated that their team members, special education teachers and the principal are team members. They need to work together to meet the instructional needs of the students. And then paraprofessional, the way that she sees their roles, SPED teachers modifying curriculum and trying to keep students on grade level, while the principal oversees and fills holes when necessary. And then the last question, what characteristics they seek in aspiring administrators with regards to special education. Principal stated a love for all children and an acceptance of differences in learners. Knowledge of SPED law is extremely important. Important to be solution focused and not problem focused, which I think was really good. So understanding that there's a problem, but then being more driven by what the solution to the problem is rather than focusing on the problem itself. And then the ability to think outside the box and offer unique or creative solutions. SPED teacher stated patience. Patience is key throughout the SPED process. And the paraprofessional stated that they should walk a day in the shoes of the SPED teacher, the OT, the speech pathologist, or para to see hands-on how it works. The more knowledge they have with the actual student and not the paperwork helps them to become more relatable. All right. Thanks, everybody, for watching.